Hello there, it's Codoking here. Today we are gonna go ahead to our second lecture in basic programming in Python, and we're gonna learn about data types and basic operations. So now that we have our compiler open, you can see that I have already laid out some stuff. Those are basically comments. If you don't know how to write comments, you can watch my previous video. If you don't know where to watch my previous video, I got a playlist attached to this video in the description, so go watch it, otherwise go duck yourself. So said so, we can finally start coding, and comments basically don't affect the coding. That's what you need to know for now. So data types are basically the kind of information that we store or we deal with in a program. So in this case, the type of information could be numbers, could be some text, could be some letters, and etc, etc. So what are integers? Integers are whole numbers like 5, 6, 899, 7. What are floats? So floating points or float numbers are basically numbers that are actually in decimal. Now there are also different kind of decimal numbers which are known as long, but I'm not gonna deal with them right now. I'm gonna tell you about them more in future. Just know that floats are decimal numbers and long too, but there's a slight difference between them. What are strings? Strings are texts. Like if I write my name is Vegeta, this is basically a string. So string can be put inside quotation marks, as we've seen before. When you want to write a text, always write it in quotation marks. And a character is basically just a single line or a single letter or whatever character you want to have inside a string. So for example, a character could be any letter of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, or it could be just this sign as well. It could be this sign, it could be this sign, it could be any sign whatsoever. Now let's go to understand how the input and output of this kind of data work. So first of all, when you want to declare a variable in other languages, you have to write something to make the compiler or the computer understand that you are talking about an integer. You should write something like this and say that x is an integer and x equals 10. However, for Python, we don't have this problem. We can just write x equals 10, and the computer will understand that this is an integer. Same goes for a string. When you want to write a string, like for example word, you can just write word equals, and you can write the quotation marks and you can write whatever word you want. So in this case, I'm going to write Goku. Now what if you want to print, you can do print, and you can just print it up. So I'm gonna print word, I'm gonna print also x. Now we run it and we can see exactly what's going on in here. Let me see. So here we have printed it in. If you want to add some text on your own, you know how to do it. You can do it like this. This is just some random printing BS. Now let's try it out and see what happens. So all good, it prints Goku 10. This is just some random BS. Now that we know how to print, we also will understand how to print some other stuff. So when we talk about a number, suppose we do x equal 10 and I write it as a text, will it still print the right way that we want? Let's try it out, okay? So if we want to print x, will it still print as a word or as whatever? Will it get printed? Yes, it gets printed. We still get the 10, but it is considered as a text, and you'll see why this is a problem. So now that we have understood that, we can go to basic operations and understand how to do basic operations. So the basic operations for a computer is basically addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And how do you do that? So you have to follow something called BODMAS. which means that you have to do whatever is inside the brackets first, then you have to follow the order, then you have to go through the division, then multiplication, then addition, and then subtraction in order. If you didn't skip your math classes, you should know, and if you are too young to have started math yet, well, congratulations, you're starting Python. You're pretty advanced, man. Alright, now let's go to coding. So if we want to code this out, something out to see if we understand basic operations, we can do something like this. So suppose you have to find the area of a rectangle. So suppose you got a base and a height. Now let's assume the base being 5 and the height being, I don't know, let's do 6. 6. So suppose we want to find the area of it. So what we can do is do area equals base into height. That's cool. So we should get the answer, but we have to print it out obviously. So let's print it out. And I'm gonna print it as the area of the rectangle is, and then what I can do is write a comma over here and then write base into height directly over here, because this is the formula. So one thing that we can do is we can do the operation over here and it should print it perfectly, and it does, because 5 into 6 equals 30 and the area of the rectangle is 30. So this is one way, or another way is actually storing this whole thing inside a variable, which I think is the best idea because you might need this area later. So you want to store it inside a variable so that you can reference it later on, so that you can use it in other pieces of your code. So here it is. Let's run it. All good. Now that we have understood how to find the area, we have to make it more useful. Because let's be honest, you don't want to open your code and write the number of the base and the height from your code and then run it to get the result. You want the whole code to ask the user the information required. So how do you do that? We know about something called input, so we can do base equals input, and then we can write a text over here, enter base, and we can enter the base, and we can do the same thing for height. We can do input and we can write enter height. Seems pretty easy. Now let's see what happens if we try to make it work. So we play some play, we have to enter the base, so I'm gonna enter 5 and enter the height, I'm gonna enter 6. Oh, hold on, we're getting an error message. And why is that so? Well, you have to understand that when you input something in this way, it is recognized, the whole thing, the data type that is going to be recognized as is actually string. So it is going to be recognized as a text, because as we have understood before, a string is basically a text. So when you write something in an input and you just write it like this, well, it doesn't matter if you put a number or whatsoever, it's gonna understand it as a text. Similarly, the way we have done in here. So x equals quotation mark, and inside the quotation marks we have 10. So this is a text, this is not a number. So you cannot be just multiplying two text, okay? You cannot do that, and because of that it's showing up as an error. So we understood that we cannot multiply to strings. So how do you do the input? Is it even possible? Yeah, of course it is. So how do you do that? You have to convert it into something else. You can convert it into an integer. So how do you do this? You write the key phrase or key word or key whatever you want to say, int, before everything, and you have to enclose everything else inside the parentheses in here. Same thing for height. So whatever is inside this int open parentheses and close parentheses is going to be converted into an integer, and as we know, an integer is actually a whole number, so it doesn't matter whatever you got inside here is going to be converted into a whole number. Then the whole number is going to go here and it's gonna do this operation over here. So let's try it out. So into the base, I'm gonna do 4 and then I'm gonna do 7. So 4 into 7 is 28 and it's working right now. All fine. Now we know how to bypass the problem that we used to have. Now, what if we wanted to do this for a triangle? If you don't know what a triangle is, again, dummy, you should know what a triangle is, but so a triangle is basically like something like this. The triangle is this shape right here. So how do you actually calculate the area of a triangle? The area of a triangle is base into height divided by 2. So we can do the same thing and see if it works. So it doesn't matter if you have a bracket over here, because even if the division is something that is supposed to be first, here it will still end up you having the correct result. But we can still put the parentheses because that's what I like to do. So let's suppose that the base of the triangle is 5 and the height is 8. So 5 into 8 should be 40, and 40 divided by 2 is 20. So we get 20.0 and we get a point O. So a point O shows that it's a floating point. And why is that a floating point? Because we didn't specify if we wanted in a floating point or how many decimal places do we wanted, or if we wanted it as an integer. Can we change this? Yes, we can. How can we change this? We can write int inside here and run it and see if it works. So we can do the same thing. Let's do 4 and 5 and we get 10. So 4 into 5 is 20. 20 divided by 2 is 10, and that's what we're getting. So what if we did something else? What if we did it with 3 and 5? So let's do it 3 and 5. So we get 7. That's strange because 3 into 5 is 15, right? So the half of 15 is 7.5, but we're getting 7. Why is that happening? That's happening because we considered an integer. We didn't consider it as a floating point. Automatically, it would have considered it as a floating point. But because we put an int before that, it's gonna consider it as an integer. So area is gonna come up as a floating point if we remove the int. So let me see again for the same values. Yes, we get 7.5. So it's all good right now. We cool, we Gucci. Now we can move to our next thing. So my next thing that I want to show you is how you calculate the area of a circle. So to calculate the area of a circle, you have to do radius multiplied by 2, not multiplied by 2, square 2. I mean square. So the formula of a circle, let me write it here. It's area equals radius square into pi. So one thing that you have to notice is that multiplication sign over here is done by an asterisk and not by x. If you write an x, you will get an error because it's gonna think that, oh my god, what the hell is this? This is not a multiplication sign. So multiplication sign in coding, it's an asterisk. So area equals radius squared but into pi. So how do you do that? That's pretty simple. Area equals radius. What is squaring? Is basically multiplying the same thing twice, right? By itself. Multiplying the same thing by itself once. So we can do 3.14. Now one thing that you see is that it's showing an error over here because we don't have any variable called radius. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna write radius equals, I'm gonna write it as an input. Yeah, I'm gonna write it as an input. And as we remember, if we want a float, we can do the same thing. Let me show you something. So I'm gonna write enter radius, and I'm gonna write it as a float, so that whenever you put inside something, you can put a floating point as well. It doesn't need to be an integer. The area of circle is, and then we can write area circle. All right, let's write it up now. So at first we got the previous code, which is enter base and whatever. We don't care about that. I'm putting just two random values. Now for the radius, I'm putting 6. So as you see, it's giving the area of the circle, which is pretty good, right? So another thing that you can do is, so suppose you got something that you have to power by, I don't know, 66. So you cannot just write radius into radius 66 times. That's kind of boring. I mean, you can, but you'd be kind of a dummy dumb. So how do you avoid this kind of issue? Instead of multiplying it by itself, you can write two asterisks back to back, and after that you can write the number that you want to square it with. So if you remember, when we put radius 6, we got 11304, 113.04. Let's try it now. It doesn't matter for the first code. First code could be anything. So we wrote 6, right? And hold and behold, we get the same answer if we put two asterisks and the number 2, because it means that radius has been elevated to the power 2. So this will imply that you powered by this number, and the power thing is gonna be happening at first, and this will be the second thing that happens. So it's not like you're gonna multiply pi by 2 and then 2 by 2 is gonna be the power of radius, because order matters, and you know that when you do maths, normally you put the power first, you do the power first. Now that we have understood that, we can go to string concatenation. So what is string concatenation? String What the hell is this? Let me show what string concatenation is. If my spelling is wrong, forgive me. So, string concatenation is basically when you join two strings. Suppose we get a variable that is called age1 and it's 10. So suppose we have a baby that is 10 years old. I don't judge you if you're 10 years old, but come on, man. Why you're not aging? Alright, so and age2 is pretty old guy, so it's 900. So what we want to do is that we want to write a code that prints this thing. Their combined age is, then I'm writing age1 plus age2. So let's see what we get if we do it like this. Now let's run it. Again, we have to complete the previous code stuff. Now, if we want to print this, we get 10, 199. So what happens if you add 10 to 99? You get 199. Now, let me do it with an easier number, just to show you. So here, 10 plus 1 is 11. All good. Now what if we put this as a string? Let's see, it sounds kinda interesting, right? What it would happen if we put it as a string? Can you do add stuff when they're in a string? So again, we don't care about the first stuff. Now we see it. Hold on, I'm getting 101, but we know that 10 plus 1 is not 101, it's 11. What's happening? Well, what's happening is that you're concatenating two strings. What is happening here is that you're adding this string and this string together. So the second string that you're adding, this is 1, it's gonna be considered as a text, and this text is gonna join the other text before here. Now, am I actually telling you the truth or am I just capping? Let's see. We put some space over here. Let's run it again. And here we go. As you see, even this code over here got a space. So I wasn't just all cap. I was actually telling you the truth. Can you do it with any kind of text? Yes, you can. So you can do print word1 equals Pikachu and word2 equals Nidoking. Let's put this in quotation marks. All right, so I'm gonna do word1 plus two. Let's run this and see what happens. Here we go, we got Pikachu, Nidoking, all together, all gemmed up. And what else can you do with this? Can you add some random string right in here as a quotation mark? Can you do that? Let's see. So it is all jammed up here. I want to add some space over here. So inside the quotation mark, I'm going to put a space. Let's see what happens. All right, I don't care about the first two. I'm just gonna skim through them. And here we go. We added a space like this, and it's working. Oh my god, yeah. So great. So we are done with our class. We're done with our. So thank you very much for watching, and do subscribe. I don't want to beg for it, but you know, man gotta do what he gotta do to get some subs. As long as it's not that questionable, of course. All right. Stay safe, stay cool, and do subscribe. Have a good one.